Thank you so much for having me here. I'm also a public defender. I'm Anna Reitano, running for seat 60. I'm a mom. I have a 7-year-old and a son who just turned 10, going on, he acts like a teenager already. And they're in the room next to me, so I'm trying to keep it low. I went to law school at UC Davis, King Hall School of Law. I worked privately handling civil law arbitrations for a few years, but for over 8 years, I've been a trial attorney at the LA County Public Defender's Office. And as a deputy public defender, I've gained trial experience everywhere from misdemeanors to felonies. I'm actually in the middle of a trial right now. We just picked a jury today. I've worked with children, adults, witnesses, investigators. Some of my clients have been innocent and some haven't been, but regardless of who I've represented, I've always worked with the same goal of upholding the Constitution and valued treating people with the dignity and respect that they deserve. I'm the only public defender running for this seat, and I think it's important, and it's what sets me apart. I chose a career working with the indigent, not because it sounded powerful or because it made me feel powerful or because I could become a judge. Being a public defender is not about power. It's actually quite the opposite. I chose this because I wanted to work with people who needed help. And I saw a need for lawyers who care about ensuring fairness and equity to work at the public defender's office with the indigent. And I'll give you guys a quick story. I've given this one before, but I think it really highlights why we need different perspectives on the bench. I was working in the courts the entire time during COVID. So in tiny rooms, I had to conduct interviews with people who were getting sick. The courts are really overwhelmed. And there was an emergency order for the courts to release nonviolent offenders for small charges. There were a lot of shuffling of court dates because the courts kept closing due to protests and COVID and everything. So people would get told to come on one day, they would come to court and the court would be closed. It was hard to keep track of changes, and I had an unhoused client who had a nonviolent charge. He was told to come on one day, the court was closed when he came, and then they changed the court date but never bothered telling him. I had no way to reach him. So at some point he was picked up on a bench warrant for not showing up to court. When he was brought to court on the warrant, I asked for him to be released due to the emergency order. And the judge said something like, he knew about the no bail order, but he could still use his discretion. And that's what he did. Instead of giving my client no bail, he made the bail $1 instead of letting him out. My client had $3 in his property. He was unhoused. The deputies wouldn't let him get access to his property. So he couldn't pay the bail. I ended up going to the clerk's office hours after he should have been released, and they said that he would have to go to a bondsman. But bondsman cost more than the $3 he had. It's only because I ended up talking the clerks into accepting $1 from me, my own pocket, so that my client didn't get put on a crowded bus and shuffled off to a crowded jail that was packed, at the height of COVID. And what was the purpose of that? What was the purpose of setting that $1? Did it keep anyone safer? This man would have gotten out, but they just made it so hard and set all these hurdles for no reason. I think we need more people who get that. So in the past elections, candidates for judicial seats were overwhelmingly DAs, and they still are. In the past 16 years, only 3 public defenders have run. 3, that's it. No one has ever won. And recently, a judge at my courthouse was admonished for bias. He's since been moved to traffic court, but it's just important to note that he hurt people, with that bias when he was on the bench. And a public defender actually ran against him initially and lost. And I can only imagine how differently things would have gone during the pandemic if the public defender had won that election. It was C. Edward Mack. that lost. But if we continue to put people in judicial seats that are only used to operating from positions of power, be it from the prosecution side or private practice, we're doing a disservice to our democracy, to our communities, and to the majority of people who find themselves in the criminal justice system. We need diversity in our judges and their backgrounds and experience. And that means we need trial attorneys like myself who are familiar with the folks who are involved with the criminal justice system, as well as the programs and practices that help in preventing recidivism. That's really important. There's things like mental health diversion and the collaborative courts that ensure accountability, but also support people and prevent them from reoffending. I think I'm the right candidate because of my experience as a public defender, and I think it offers a lot of value to what I can bring to the bench if I'm elected to seat 60. So if anyone has any questions, I'd love to have your endorsement.
Thank you. We are trying to keep it to 5 minutes per judge, but people, I see your website is in the chat, so people can send you their questions there. Let's move on.